Howdy. So through the magic of time travel, we're we're going to Rottnest Island. So we booked our tickets to Rottnest a couple of days ago, and but a couple of things had to be done first. So I had to sort out we started getting an issue with our car fridge, and where it was throwing up some errors and not keeping our fridge. Essential fridge items like beer and water and that cold. So I managed to find a J car locally, and took the. I saw that they were closing in about half an hour, so I madly rushed down there, and had a bit of a chat with the guys. And cut a long story short, I still had the receipt, 3-year warranty. Still had the receipt. I only bought it about a year ago, and. They actually swapped it over with the floor model that they had in the store there, so that was good. A bit embarrassing though, because I had to empty the the thing out, and so I'm driving back in the dark. I didn't have enough time to sort of put everything back in the fridge, so I'm driving in the dark with the car, and there's just cans of beer and cider and food and stuff all over the back of the car. If I had been picked up by the coppers, would have been interesting. But so the next morning we headed off fairly early to the wharf to go catch the ferry over to Rotto. Mel dosed up on Travelcarb, which is an essential. We got there a little bit early, probably about an hour early to the wharf, because we kind of imagined peak hour traffic and all that sort of stuff. But when you're looking at a place like around Freo and Perth, well, peak hours, it's nothing like Melbourne. So we parked the car. That was no dramas. We caught the ferry over there. Pretty good ferry trip. So many bikes. So it's a primary form of transport is either walking or riding on a bike. So we got tickets for the bus. It's a bus that sort of does circuits around the island, and you can sort of hop on, hop off at your leisure. So we sort of did the suggested route around, and we'd sort of get off here, walk to the next spot, get on. So Little Salmon Bay, Parker Point, the Lighthouse, the West End, the very far end, Cape Fleming, Cathedral Rocks, and then back to the city of York, where we then sort of waited with some quokkas to have our lunch. Little Armstrong Bay, Parakeet Bay, and then we sort of made our way back to the settlement, which is where the ferry comes in, and we finished off with a beer and a cider and some hot chips waiting for the ferry. So we then got back, had dinner that night, and then the next day we're moving on. I'd found the issue with my CV joints that had started knocking, so I'd arranged to have them replaced by a mob just east of Freo. But it then meant that we had to sort of move on a little bit north to get closer to them. So we did that, but on the way through we actually parked up near Kings Park with the caravan, which is no mean feat. And because we didn't have far to actually drive, we only had about 50k to drive, so we went for a good walk around Kings Park, hearing about all the views and what have you over the river and what have you. So but we walked the wrong way. So where we thought we sort of walked towards seeing the big views overlooking Perth, we actually went the opposite way. So we ended up walking about, 2 or 3 hours before we actually came around the park to where you actually see the views of Perth. But a really stunning park. It's beautifully done. We did about 18,000 steps. So with the CV shafts, I noticed that when I'd be taking off on a bit of an incline at a red light or something with the van, there'd be this knocking happening, and having had a front-wheel drive car before, I sort of knew what was happening. So there was a local Toyota dealer, went in there, can you hook me up with some new drive shafts? And I said, yeah, no worries, we'll order them from Melbourne, be a couple of weeks. No, mate, no, that's not going to cut it. So I ended up finding up a mob just east of Freo. And they said, yeah, no worries, we can do that. This is, I think, on whatever days it is, Thursday. And then they said, yeah, we can book it in on the Monday. So we packed up and we headed up just over north of Perth, a place called Swan Valley, for a few days. The day after we got there, I dropped the car off to get the CV joints done. It was about 10k, or not even, probably 5k up the road. Caught an Uber back. Mel arranged a hairdresser and went and did that. When I came back from dropping the car off, because it was going to be quite a few hours, so I went back. I armed myself with a screwdriver, and once again I went through the caravan with every bloody visible screw, tightened it all up, and then in the afternoon picked up the CV joints, picked up the car and the new CV joints, $1,000. We then we hooked up and we went to the Pinnacles, and that's a spot which I wanted to go to for quite a few years. Mel's brother-in-law, my brother-in-law Michael, and his wife Amanda and kids, when they were very little, went and did the Pinnacles, and I remember seeing some photos of them, and it's really quite a surreal sort of environment. It's really like you're on another planet. So we spent a little bit of time there, which was really cool. That was a bit of a buzz. I didn't realise that we'd managed to see the Pinnacles. I actually thought they were somewhere along the Nullarbor, but not so. So then we head to Geraldton, where there was no camping at all. All the caravan parks were full. There was an area, like an overflow area on the foreshore that had spots for about maybe a dozen and a half vans. That was all full. But as we were driving past, we saw that there was a spot where, there's quite a few motorhomes and vans over there. And it's literally just this great big car park where the fishers go to launch their boats of a morning. Now, in the afternoon, once they're all back and they've gone home eating their fish, the car park's empty. So people just sort of rock up after the rangers have gone past and they park up there for the night. So there was really about, I don't know, 10 or 15 vans there. So we thought, oh, well, safety in numbers. So we parked up there, and that was cool. The following morning, sure enough, after we got there was probably another 3 or 4 vans came in after us, but the rangers actually did come through in the morning, and we sort of looked out the window and we sort of see this guy doing a beeline between the various vans. So it's like, yeah, right. And when he came up to us, I came out of the van. I said, no, mate, I just got here. And he laughed. He said, look, as long as you get out in the next 10 minutes, you'll be fine. So that was good. We then headed up to Kalbarri for a few days. So you're going along obviously the west coast of Australia, the Indian Ocean, and just amazing spots for sunsets and sea views. There's a spot there where there was pelican feeding in the morning, so we went and saw that. Not as good as Phillip Island. Phillip Island's pelican feeding is better. So we then head towards Denham and Shark Bay. Did a little bit of sand driving. There were massive caravans parked in an area where it basically said, you shouldn't drive caravan in here, but caravans at least as big as ours, if not bigger. Make sure your bra's strapped on tight and your dentures are in. So next time if we go up there, we'll definitely book that or just make our way in there. So we saw some wonderful sunsets. Would have been better being camped up on the beach, but we were in a caravan park. They had a special fireworks display just for us, which coincided with the commemoration of the end of the fishing season, which is apparently a bit of a tradition there. So along the foreshore there was all these food vans and music and stuff like that, and then they have this big fireworks show. So that was pretty cool to see that. Following morning, so we were in about 27th of May. Following morning, we headed up early to Monkey Mia, so the other side, and from Denham, and got there pretty early. It's the road across there is 110 kilometres an hour, but at like 6 o'clock in the morning, lots of wildlife still on the road, so still dusk, and so we drove quite slowly, but we got there, and they have 3 sessions where they have the dolphins coming out. They do the dolphin feeding, but it's changed a lot across the years, where people now don't actually go and feed the fish. It's only the rangers or the assistants that do it. You can actually put your feet in the water, but when it comes time to actually feed the dolphins, everyone steps out of the water, and that's the sign that the dolphins then know that okay, I'm about to be fed, so let's come in and have a look. They only feed a few of the dolphins, and they only feed them a little handful of fish, whatever, and they basically say, look, they don't guarantee that there's going to be dolphins. There's pretty much dolphins every day, but how many, who knows? And they normally get, half a dozen or so. The first session they had 19 dolphins came in, which was just fantastic, and the rangers there know the dolphins individually and can give you the description of like the various family relationships. That one's the mother of that one, and blah blah blah. So that was really cool. We then waited around for the second session, and there was a few more that came. So in total, I think they had 23 individual dolphins come in over the course of that morning. They only do 3 sessions, and then that's it. So we were pretty fortunate to see that. A bit later on in the morning, Mel was just walking along the beachfront there between the piers that you can go out and the jetties, and the dolphin just basically comes up and is pretty well having a chat there with her, which was great. So that's again another place we definitely go to, and I think next time if we were to go to Monkey Mile, we'd probably stay closer there and spend a few days there itself. So when we came back to camp across the other side, I gave Mum a call because it was her birthday. Happy birthday, Mum. And then there's actually a 4-wheel drive track that goes up to the very tip of that peninsula there called Cape Peron, and pretty gnarly sand driving. Melanie wasn't interested, so I said, all right, well, if you want to hang around here, it's something I'd really like to do, to go up to the very northern tip there of the Cape Peron Peninsula. So yeah, jumped in the car, had myself a couple of soft drinks in there, a packet of chips, and I did this, and it was a really cool, really cool time. Some of the sand driving was just not insane, but it was pretty gnarly. Righto. So I've put the camera up in Melanie's headrest here. I don't know how long it's going to stay there, but let's give this a crack. So this would be Melanie's view of the world. Might end up falling down, who knows? So that was a good day, and then the following day we headed up towards Carnarvon. So even though it's spelt Carnarvon, it's pronounced Carnarvon, like Carnarvon apple, Carnarvon banana, Carnarvon. So there's not well, arguably there's not a lot there. We refueled, and we'd arranged to be staying in Exmouth with Mel's cousin Brett Strom, and so he he was on a bit of a tight schedule, so we sort of rearranged things. We were going to stay in Carnarvon for a couple of days. We didn't. We kept going, and we stayed at a place called Quobber Blowholes, which was pretty cool. Again, beach camping. We were right behind the dunes. Reasonably good sunsets, although it was a bit overcast. And the following day, we basically were going to be getting up and heading to Exmouth. We will spend probably a good part of a week. So very enjoyable so far of the West Coast, and stay tuned.